Hi everybody, it's Jim. Welcome to the channel. I'm going to do my annual roundup of books that I completed in 2025. So let me get right into it. I'm going to feature my top 20 reads. By late December of this year, the book tally was 77. More books finished in a calendar year than ever before. I really don't think I've ever read this many books. I did not set out with a goal or a metric in mind at all. I just wanted to read. In fact, I'm increasingly interested in not setting goals like that. Looking back, 2025 demanded a different kind of presence, one that only long-form reading could provide, so I read a lot. There were three currents that drove me to the page this year, I think. First, there was The Vigil. Our Boston Terrier, Alfie, our beloved Boston, spent his final months in a slow decline, requiring careful, watchful, quiet care that naturally lent itself to a book at my side. I often read just sitting right next to him. And when he crossed the Rainbow Bridge in July, I retreated. Grief is a heavy load, and for a few months, I shut myself away. Books were not just a distraction. They were the only companions that didn't ask anything of me. Second, this YouTube channel provided a positive feedback loop. Sharing thoughts about books with an audience transformed reading from a solitary act into a conversation with you all. It never felt like a grind reading all these books. It was fuel. And finally, there was the brain bath. Reading kept me away from doom scrolling and running around with hair on fire lunacy because, well, you know why. I don't have to get into that. Reading is my primary defense mechanism against the brimstone inferno of our digital age and everything awful that's happening these days. So I did seek refuge in my books. So let me get right into the top 20 books finished in 2025. I can't talk about all of the books. I can't do all 77. But you can go to my Substack article linked in the show description if you want to read more about that. So here I curated a list of favorites, books that shifted my frequency or left a mark. And I hope you enjoyed reading as much as I did this year. So let's get right down to it. We're going to be hopping around the house today, going from bookshelf to bookshelf. So let's see how this goes. And for number 20, we start with Endless Life, selected poems by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. This is accessible beat generation poetry with a good eye for detail in a range of poetic registers. Ferlinghetti was a San Francisco icon, the man who kept the lights on at City Lights books well into his 101st year. Endless Life is unpretentious, and I really liked the flow of these poems a lot, and it was a keeper. At number 19, we have Clea by Lawrence Durrell, the finale of the Alexandria Quartet. This is less of a conclusion, more of a resolution of forces. The protagonist, Darley, returns to his old haunts to find the city of Alexandria and his memory of it irreversibly changed. Durrell's genius lies in this stereoscopic narrative. No single perspective is ever cornering the truth. And I would like to revisit the Alexandria Quartet in a single continuous run instead of reading it like one book a year, just to fully map the whole spatial temporal architecture of the sequence. Anybody who's obsessed with how the passage of time and the dynamics of relationships can reindex the meaning of the past should find Alexandria worth visiting. At number 18, we have Lysistrata by Aristophanes. Read this from the Great Books of the Western World. Aristophanes' riotous feminist comedy holds up very well to a reread. And when the women of Athens and Sparta go on a sex strike, the war ends mighty fast. I also read the book again in another translation by Heritage Press, which had very nice line drawings by Pablo Picasso. And we'll stick with Aristophanes for book number 17, and this is The Clouds by Aristophanes. This is a laugh-out-loud send-up of highfalutin philosophers. We see a very satirical view of Socrates, which is starkly different from the reverence shown Socrates in writers like Plato and Xenophon. It's said that Socrates himself saw this play performed live and stood up in protest at the mischaracterization. I like to think he was in on the joke, but I'm not sure. And at number 16, we have Chaos by Tom O'Neill and a co-author. This is page-turning crime, true crime, that probes a bevy of rabbit holes involving the Manson family murders of 1969. O'Neill spent 20 years on this investigation, and the book chronicles that journey. I was swept up in the hunt, the detective work, the dalliance with conspiracy theories, as O'Neill strove to piece together the puzzle pieces. And these were shattering crimes that symbolize the end of an era, the time of hippie peace and love. And it all turned very murderous and devilish. And maybe that was part of the plan. This is some of the questions that are speculated on in Chaos by Tom O'Neill. Haiku Illustrated, translated by Hart, Larrabee. This was a Barnes & Noble impulse buy for me. It's in a Chinese binding. It's featuring the Japanese haiku masters Basho, Busan, Issa, and Shiki. I loved it. You get the original Japanese script. You get beautiful illustrations, and the translations are really fine. I come back to this book a lot. Number 14, The Magic of Findhorn by Paul Hawken. Findhorn was name-checked in the classic film My Dinner with Andre. Andre Gregory talks a lot about this magical place in northern Scotland where crops and flowers are cultivated and they grow, they flourish, and they should have no business growing there, but they do. And it's kind of this new age community. So Paul Hawken profiles the quirky characters who founded this community and sustained it. Great read, and I passed it on to my daughter when I was done. At number 13, we have Orlando by Virginia Woolf. This is a Folio Society edition, really lovely. This is gender-bending historical fantasy by the 20th century master in British literature. Virginia Woolf must have had a ball writing this book. That's what I kept thinking the whole time I was reading it. And an all-around lovely reading experience. That's Orlando by Virginia Woolf, number 13. Number 12, American Pastoral by Philip Roth. Many say it's one of Roth's best books, and I admit it did make for a compelling read that lingered long after the last page. What happens, Roth asks, when the American dream is tarnished by your daughter turning into a protest bomber? It ain't pretty. That's American Pastoral by Philip Roth. And we'll go back to number 11 now, The Waterworks by E.L. Doctorow. I found this at a little free library. I read it and I gave it away. It's a historical novel about New York City on the make during the Gilded Age. And Doctorow takes the search for a missing person into unexpected territory, a shadowy orphanage, stolen bodies, mad steampunk science, and a horrific attempt to cheat death. I was pleasantly surprised by this book. I didn't realize where it was headed, and I very much enjoyed the ride. So one of the best surprises of 2025, The Waterworks, E.L. Doctorow. And at number 10, The Great Gatsby. This is a special edition, the 100th anniversary, published by Library of America, F. Scott Fitzgerald. This edition felt less like a reread, more like an archaeological dig. And the annotations and the visuals really added a granular context that was palpable. I super enjoyed going through all the notes. It's a different way to read the book altogether. I wouldn't do it for my first read through of Great Gatsby, but if you want to do a reread, more of a deep dive, this is excellent. What struck me the most on this read through, it's probably the third time I've read it. I know I read it in 11th grade at Marple Newtown High School. I read it in college for a lit survey, and that might be it. I don't think I ever taught it, but what struck me most on this time reading it so many years later was Fitzgerald's impeccable pacing and the paradox in the book. This is an intensely likable book about deeply unlikable people. J. Gatsby, who maybe, well, he's so iconic, isn't he? Complex character for sure. He wanted to rewrite his story and get the girl through sheer force of wealth and will. And reading it again, I found myself focusing on the symbols, especially that green light at the dock. And I look at that not so much as a symbol of hope anymore, but more as a marker of distance. You can't really redo the past, but oh my, how impossible it is to stop trying. And here's a creative nonfiction highlight of the year. Number 9, Desert Solitaire by Edward Abbey. Abbey's account of his time at Arches National Monument in Utah is far from a standard nature journal. It's a muscular manifesto confronting what it means to be a human in a landscape that doesn't care if you live or die. His prose can be quite lyrical, but it possesses a serrated edge too. He's rejecting the noise of modern American civilized life in favor of the red rock authenticity of the desert Southwest. And for anyone who has ever felt the pull of the great national parks out there, Abbey reminds you why you need to go there. Really love this book. I passed it on to a little free library for someone else to discover. And at number 8, we have City of God by E.L. Doctorow. I had such good fortune reading The Waterworks that I just couldn't resist doing another Doctorow book this year, especially since it connected with the run of religious-themed books I seem to be gravitating towards all year. And it's a rather plotless novel, postmodern, but it's filled with page-turning prose brilliance and deep thinking about our fraught relationship to God at the turn of the millennium. He published it in 2001. And what some might view as a big mess, I thought was a virtuoso performance. Loved it. City of God by E.L. Doctorow, number 8. And at number 7, we have Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is the 1831 edition. Beyond the Gothic horror. This is a stark meditation on the ethics of creation and the responsibilities we have towards the things that we bring into being. The creator can't ever really, truly walk away from his shadow, the creature. And those were some of my takeaways from what I see as a great psychodrama, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And at number 6, Joyce Carol Oates. You must remember this. This is a signed leather-bound edition that I've stumbled into in a used bookshop for not much money at all. I found this to be a devastating, absorbing depiction of life in 1950s America. This is not your sanitized Pleasantville version, not Happy Days here. This is a gritty, gray-tinted, sobering, often violent portrayal of a decade defined by paranoia and very dark secrets. Once I got into the middle of this, it was hard to put down. A really strong novel. That's number 6. You must remember this, Joyce Carol Oates. Here at number 5 is another Penguin Classics, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. I read this back in February. So glad I got around to it. What a dramatic, suspenseful narrative. For years, Harriet Jacobs hid in plain sight of the slave owner she fled. And this first-person voice was compelling, riveting, heroic. Loved it. It's on a par with the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. That's Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. At number 4, The Cider House Rules by John Irving. So happy I finally got around to reading this one. I put off reading The Cider House for years because I didn't think I would be drawn to the subject matter, illegal abortions, which are performed by an altruistic doctor, Dr. Wilbur Larch, at St. Cloud's Orphanage in Maine. Well, I was wrong. This book captivated me. There is so much more going on. It's mostly the story of the coming of age of an orphan, Homer Wells, a totally likable character. My God, what a great Irving character. And it's a book with a moral compass, too, and a compassionate heart. And it went into some interesting directions that I didn't totally anticipate. And it's just a nice chronicle, a nice saga, which is what John Irving tends to be really good at. One of the best Irving books that I have read, The Cider House Rules. And at number 3, a children's lit book. This is The Phantom Tollbooth by Norman Juster. Friends clued me into this book, and it bugged me because I had never really heard of it before, and I definitely didn't read it when I was a kid. I might have been vaguely familiar with the Jules Feiffer, the cover, was sort of ringing a few bells very dimly, but I just wasn't aware of it, and I feel like I missed out. So I hunted down a copy, happily devoured it. It's an allegory, essentially. It's an allegory about the adventuresome pursuit of knowledge. And it's smart, it's witty, it's charming, it's fantastic. And it has those quirky illustrations by Jules Feiffer. The Phantom Tollbooth. So glad I finally got around to reading it. And at number 2, we have Richard Yates, The Easter Parade. What a wonderful novel this was. Yates operates with no pretense masterstrokes that expose things for how they truly are. Realism at its best, in my humble opinion. It's set in a Mad Men adjacent world where you're slanted more towards the lives of these 2 sisters from a broken home, and they're on these divergent, heartbreaking trajectories. It's sobering, to put it mildly. And yet the sheer artful execution of the book is oddly uplifting. and it bears witness to these women's lives and gives them the attention that they deserve. That's The Easter Parade by Richard Yates. What a wonderful writer. I wish more people knew about him. And lastly, our number one top read of 2025, and those of you who have been following this channel all year should not be surprised that it is In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. The whole damn thing, all 7 volumes, I read it this year. This was the only real reading project I pursued in 2025, and it was worth it. It was a marathon run through Proust's entire 7-volume cycle. What took me a decade to read the first time, I did it in about 6.5 months. If you read about 20 pages a day, you can get through this in a year or less. You can do it too. Well, reading these modern Penguin Deluxe Classic editions was a lot of fun. I could compare the fresh translations to the Moncrief and Stephen Hudson translations that I read the first time through. What can you say about Proust? I've made so many videos about him this year, but I'll say this. It's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece of introspection and overthinking. A very flawed narrator, but wow, what a fascinating character, and all the characters in the book. Just love it. You get to the end of the search and you realize something. You realize that time isn't just something that passes irretrievably. Though we do leave pieces of ourselves behind in the things we give away. But the artist, like Marcel Proust, like his narrator, thanks to involuntary memory, can recover those bits, reconstruct them, make a life out of them. The past recaptured is the book you've been writing all your life. That is In Search of Lost Time, Marcel Proust, Penguin Deluxe Classic Editions. Yes, loved it. Woo! I'm out of breath. I've been going up and down the steps from bookshelf to bookshelf, but it was worth it. That is my top 20 reads for 2025. And I have a whole list of more books. All 77 books are listed on the article in my Substack. If you want a link to that, I'll throw a link in the show description. But these are most of the highlights, and I just had a wonderful reading year. I hope you had a wonderful reading year too. Let me know in the comments if you have comments about these titles, you have questions about them, but I'm really most interested in what were your favorite reads of 2025. Let's share in the comments. If you're new to the channel, I hope you become a subscriber. It's a lot of fun, and we hope to be back real soon with more videos. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Be well. Peace out.